Good afternoon, YouTubers. I do believe it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I wanted to revisit a topic that I discussed a few years back. It was on UFOs and aliens. Now, I haven't just recently gotten back from college. I wanted to find a more factual basis for this theory. Now, I want you to hear me here. You know, I'm going to be asking the question. The whole purpose for this thing is to ask one question. Is it factually plausible for UFOs to exist? Okay? Now listen. I know there's a lot of people out there who they spend their whole life living in another world of their fanciful imaginations. And they build their theories on their fanciful imaginations. Well, look. I am wanting to build, to prove, at least try to get you to consider, is it possible for these things to happen? Is it possible? Is it possible for these things to exist? I believe that I found some important information, and it's credible information, that would prove to be interesting. Once again, I know that there are people out there who build their lives on their fanciful imagination and not on facts and not on the truth. But my idea today, or what I want to do, is to build on the truth and on facts. And if you've got enough guts, you'll listen. Okay, this first segment is entitled On UFOs, Unidentified Flying Objects. Now, let's state some facts. Let's look at what does the external evidence have to say? Well, back in 1995, there was a classified document that was released in Russia. The KGB had this document called the Blue Folder, and in this folder was from, I think it was the early or late 60s to the early 90s. These classified documents about these ships, these things that these men were seeing, these agents were seeing, and they tried to find ways to get rid of them or shoot them down or follow them, but number one, what happened was, in one instance, is that the pilot that was chasing the UFO, all of a sudden his instruments went haywire, and the UFO disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to it. It's just gone. Just like that. Now listen, let me ask you a question. What motive would somebody have in a government to come out and fabricate this kind of a story? Let's get this straight here. These are people involved with the Secret Service who release classified documents. Look, they've been in the task force almost all their lives. Why would they spin this kind of a fairy tale? It would make them look absolutely stupid and ridiculous. And why would they make up a story about flying objects? You know what I'm saying, right? Okay. Fact number 2. I do believe that the first person in the 40s to be credited with a UFO sighting was Kenneth Arnold. Kenneth Arnold was a businessman, and he was basically an aviator by trade, or something to that effect. He was up in high altitude, and he saw these objects fly they were like saucers. They flew like saucers in a formation. In a formation, I can't remember what the name of the formation was, but it was unlike anything he'd ever seen. And so he reported it when he landed. He was going on a trip somewhere. When he landed at the airport, he reported it, and he described these objects. And nobody quite understood what he's talking about. But a while later, someone else credible and in the United States military and government saw the same thing. Now, I'll get the name up for you real quick. The dude's name was that saw the same thing that Kenneth Arnold did. A while later, another government official saw the same thing. Okay, I'll put the quote up for you, where I got my source from. Okay? Alright. Now, number two, let me ask you something. Why would the United States government fabricate a story about some sort of mysterious flying objects? Okay? It's stupid. Okay, you have a businessman who's an aviator, and you're telling me that he wants to cook up a yarn? Cook up some sort of wild story that nobody will believe? Come on, let's think here. These are businessmen, people in their business, in the business of the United States government. What motive would they have to cook up a yarn like that? What motive would they have to cook up a story, to tell a tale of something like that? I think this is evidence number 3. Evidence number 3 is there's a project done back in the 60s or something like 50s. I can't remember who started it. It was called Project Blue Book. And in the, I think it was the early 70s, the United States government intervened, and it was started, if I'm not mistaken, it was started by other people in the United States government who wanted to research these flying saucers. And in the 70s, the United States government came in and said, look, we're going to put a stop to this. Look, it's over and done with. This stuff is just mythological nonsense. Shut it down. And so the project stopped. Why? You know, ask yourself this question. Why? Why would they shut it down? If it's such a big fairy tale, give me a break. You know, is there anything to hide? I mean, after all, if it's a myth, you shouldn't be afraid of somebody digging for evidence. You know what I'm saying? Why would you be afraid of that? If it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. Obviously, looking at the evidence, I see that they're trying to hide something, but what exactly? Well, here's my conclusion on UFOs. And it started when I was reading about I think it was the Lockman Foundation. It was started by this guy back in the 30s. It was this foundation was named several times, but it came under the name of the Lockman Foundation, and this guy had a passion for flying. He wrote a book called, I think, Flying Vehicles or something like that, and his dream of flying was a machine, a contraption that could fly at the speed of 40 to 50 miles an hour, and it would be the cheapest mode of transportation. Think about that. This guy who has a passion for flying started this organization, and in the, I think it was 60s, they helped the United States government develop a top secret aircraft. A top secret aircraft. I think it was a Boeing. I can't remember what type of plane, but they helped the United States government develop a secret aircraft, and in the 70s they went belly up because they were borrowing money from the United States government, and they couldn't pay their loans back. Something to that effect anyway. And then, of course, there's evidence number 5 or 6. There's something called, I think it was a black projects, and what black projects are is these kind of projects are top secret military government projects that the government denies that they're doing, and then later on confesses to them when the time's right. For instance, if in the early 40s somebody was going around saying, oh, the United States government is doing the Manhattan Project, which was the project to help make the atom bomb, you know, the government would say, no, we're not. And then after World War II, they say, well, yeah, we did. You see what I'm saying? That's a black project, a project that's undercover, hush-hush, nobody's supposed to know about it. And if anybody does say anything about it, the government will deny it. So in my opinion, UFOs are just government project planes that the government doesn't want anybody to know about. Think about it. And look up the word NARCAP.